I told you I jumped on Instagram. I don't know if you guys saw me on Instagram and jumping on over here right now. I'm super duper stoked. Super duper stoked. I know it. I used to have my radio show and it was all interviews. And then I started this podcast. I've done 3 interviews out of, man, I probably got to be over 100 shows now. I've only done 3 interviews. I am so freaking pumped, dude. You guys don't even know, man. So King Mo, this guy's been on my radar. It has to be 2000. I'm guessing it was 2004 or 2005, whenever Matt Case put on Real Pro Wrestling out in LA. And dude, I was like, man, this guy's a superstar. I saw this dude early on, but I never knew how to meet him or get to know him or whatever. So recently, because I've been building this damn business for 20 years, I'm lucky enough now to bring King Mo to you, not just on this interview. Guys, get on, type in the chat. We can ask him questions, whatever, man. This guy's a stud. U.S. Senior National Freestyle champ, Risen champ, Bellator champ. I mean, man, ridiculous. And he's a pro wrestler. And he's all in with scientific wrestling. So you guys, not only am I bringing him here to you right now for about a half hour, but we're bringing him out. Dude, he's on the Science of Violence tour, dude, for spring or for fall 2023. Coming out to Denver, King Mo in the Mile High City. Hope his lungs, he's probably been to the Olympic Training Center, so he knows how the air is out here. Not a lot of air. Lake Charles, Louisiana, Oklahoma, where he spent some time in Oklahoma. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on this dude, man. This guy, I'm sorry, I'm kind of being a fanboy right now. This guy is so cool. All right, here we go. What's up, King Mo?
What is up, man? What's going on?
Dude, I just can't tell you, man. I am seriously trying to be cool because I'm so stoked. I just think you're the freaking cat's me out, dude. You're just a total stud. And for me, the thing with my company, Scientific Wrestling, what we did is early on realized before everybody else did how dominant wrestlers were and how they are. For 20 years, I've been trying to weaponize folk style wrestling for MMA and grappling. And so a cat like you with your pedigree and what you've done in the sport, man, I don't know. All I got is props, dude. I just love your career. So question I have for you, right?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
What drew you to wrestling, like amateur wrestling? Because then I want to get into what drew you to MMA and I'm guessing it was money. And then I want to ask you what drew you to pro wrestling.
What drew me to amateur wrestling? So here's the thing, right? I started wrestling in Texas. I'll never forget. I think it was my sophomore year. We were playing Longview or Lumpkin, one of them teams. They're both good. And we were getting destroyed because we couldn't make tackles. So the defensive line coach was like, hey, all the football players that play defense, if you want to get your tackling right, you got to go wrestle. It's mandatory. If you're on defense, D-line, linebacker, corner, whatever, you will wrestle to work on your tackling. And That's what happened. Yeah.
Wow. And so what happened? Clearly, especially back then, what year was this? Would you say?
Probably 96, 97.
Oh, dude. So MMA is still a freak show. It's not even a real thing, really. It's kind of crazy right now. So you're hot on football at first.
Well, no, I like MMA because back then it was called No Holds Barred and Valley Tudo.
Yeah.
So I was into combat sports. I just didn't know much. I was a boxing fan first and foremost. So yeah, because I like fighting. And then when I found out about wrestling and I started wrestling, it was a legalized fight. And then at that time, MMA, No Holds Barred, Valley Tudo was growing in Japan, and it was growing in America under the organization called King of the Cage. The Extreme Challenge. They had an organization in Amarillo. I forgot what it's called. I'm going blank on the name. It's Shoot something. I'm going blank on the name, but a lot of guys like Frank Trigg, Evan Tanner.
They're starting. Yeah, that was a shoot wrestling organization. I can't remember the name of the dude.
ISWF, I think.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, and that was in Texas. That's right. So
Amarillo, Texas.
Were you in Houston or where were you?
I was in Plano, right outside Dallas.
Okay, closer to Dallas. I see. Wow. So your football coach is like, dude, go get some wrestling. So you go and you do some wrestling, and how does that go for you?
I loved it. I went to wrestling practice with my socks on, and I just started wrestling, getting takedowns, trying to get away. I was getting off the ground, off the bottom. I was having a hard time, with the top because I was locking my hands. So I just started like taking people down, letting them up. I take you down, let you up. Take you down, let you up. 2-1, 2-1, 2-1. If I got a near fall in between while you're going to your back, that's cool. But that's how I was doing things.
So you started rocking it during high school, and then what? Did somebody just see you in college and was like, no, we need this dude, or like how did you continue to progress?
Okay, so what happened was like I went to a freestyle tournament in Texas, and I think I placed or I won it, and then I got a USA Wrestling magazine, and I saw rankings. I was like, rankings? I'm like, they got national rankings. I'm like, who are all these people? I didn't know who any of these people were, but then I realized they were going to these national tournaments like Southern Plains and Fargo, and I'd never heard about Fargo. I couldn't afford to go anywhere, but where I could afford to go to was the Southern Plains tournament. So going into my junior year or sophomore, my senior year, going to my senior year, I went to win them tournaments and won them, the regional tournaments, and I won. I wrestled locally, freestyle and Greco, but we couldn't afford to go nationwide, So I just started winning, kept on winning. A few guys, a few teams, a few coaches saw interest in me, but they didn't want to take a chance on me because I'm from Texas and I started too late and they thought that I was too raw. So like people passed on me. I went to senior nationals. I came one match away from placing, and Central Oklahoma was the only school that wanted to take a risk, take a chance on me. They offered me a scholarship. Mark Manning talked to me. All these schools talked to me, but they didn't, really care to do much with me. Jack Space from Oklahoma didn't care much. Just wanted to have me walk on. But Central Oklahoma gave me my shot.
So they took care of you, brought you up, and tell me like how was that? Like how was your experience like going from kind of this high school level, now you're up with these more elite cats. How was that for you?
It wasn't that rough because here's what happened. After my last final in high school, it's a kid named Alan that was going up to Kansas, and I had a cousin that lived in Norman, and I knew about the Oklahoma wrestling program, so I paid this kid like $40 to take me to Norman, and I stayed with my cousin. So the first Monday, I went to the field house where the wrestling team was, and I was there like at 7 a.m, and I waited. Nobody showed up. Then Byron Tucker showed up, national champion from Oklahoma, showed up around like 11. I was waiting for somebody to drill with him. I think Michael Barber at the time. And Michael Barber didn't show up, so Byron was like, Mo, he's like, hey, you want to wrestle? I know you're here waiting for people to come wrestle. I've been waiting there for like 3 hours, 4 hours for someone to show up. And then after that, I just started wrestling. I wrestled at the University of Oklahoma every day with whoever. It didn't matter. 125, heavyweight. And I was just getting beaten, pummeled and beaten. And then I finally got a few takedowns towards the end of the summer. And then I went to Central Oklahoma, and I started doing good right away. And the funny thing is, our first dual meet was versus Oklahoma, and I won. I was undefeated versus Oklahoma because, I went there and trained with those guys, but the coaches never thought that I was good enough to wrestle for them because I was so raw and I was so new to wrestling. So, I went there, beat a lot of their guys. I had a lot of success competing. It was just different. I liked it. I wasn't for a team. Fuck a team. I'm solo. You know what I'm saying? Like in wrestling. Yeah, because in wrestling, you have a team, but really you don't. It's just like fighting. You have a team you train with, but when it comes down to it, your team is yourself. Your coach is your coach, but at the same time, your coach is yourself because you're in there getting taken down. You're in there getting cross-faced. You're in there cradling people. You're in there scoring your points. not your coach. Your coach is just advising you on what he thinks is going to work for the match or for the competition.
Yeah, dude, I love it because I have a belief, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But I'm very very serious about like personal development and achievement and accomplishing things. And I think personally, you see all these people doing like Tony Robbins and all this. Dude, wrestling is the greatest form of personal development ever known to man for the longest period of time in history. Because exactly what you said, man, it's like there ain't no excuses. That like you're the guy showing up to practice. You're the guy keeping going even though you got blood time or what. Like, what is your belief about like the role of wrestling in just excellence? You know what I mean? Like, what are the lessons to be learned? Like, let's say there's a young cat watching this right now, and he's like, "Well, I can either go out for basketball or I can go out for wrestling." What kind of advice would you give that young dude?
Depends on how tall he is.
Yeah, that's true.
And how fast he is. Can he jump? Do he have bad hips, knees? But really, not just wrestling, because like I see it as like combat sports. Wrestling and boxing are cousins.
Yeah.
Same footwork. You don't cross your legs. Same stance, except with wrestling, your stance is a little lower.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so like the same aches and pains you'll feel in wrestling, you feel in boxing, taekwondo, judo, sambo, and so on, just in different ways. All those combative sports, it's just like, in order to be successful, you have to have goals. You have to set goals. You have to be diligent. You have to be, you have to be almost superhuman in a sense. You have to be like a Batman. I'm not saying you have to have his money, but you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for the ups and downs, because Batman has all that money, but his parents died. So you will lose some matches. You will win some matches. You'll get some good draws. You'll get some bad draws, just like in life. Life and fighting come hand in hand. Some people fight physically. Some people fight for their rights. Some people fight to see their kids. Some people fight to pay the bills. Some people fight, to help stop climate change. Everybody's fighting for something. We just don't always got to do it physically. And in wrestling is physically and mental. You know what I'm saying? It's done both. Combat sports is both physical and mental. So.
So tell me a little bit about. So you're rocking it, which, by the way, I love the fact that Norman was kind of magical for you, because here we are going back to Norman to teach some cats at an MMA gym at the Coliseum MMA in Norman. So I know they're going to be eating this up, and it's kind of, I think it's kind of historically significant to have you go back there and teach some MMA. It's like, like almost like a full revolution, 360 going back, which I love. But so you're wrestling in Oklahoma. What was the thing? Like, you're already aware of MMA and no holds barred. What got you? Like, was it like, well, crap, man, there ain't no pro league. I mean, despite the intention of real pro wrestling, there ain't no pro league for me, and I'm good at this. Was it money? Was it just love of the sport? Like, what brought you into the MMA scene?
I was already in it. By the time I was 20, there's a guy named Jeff Lindsay. He's from Edmond, Oklahoma. He'll probably be at the seminar, but he was one of the first guys from Oklahoma to do MMA. Actually, no holds barred Valley 2 though.
Wow.
So I remember when I was wrestling at Central Oklahoma, he came in.
What's his name? I'm sorry to interrupt. What's his name again?
Jeff Lindsay. I remember I was in Edmond, Central Oklahoma, and I was working out. Because my schedule, what I usually do is like after class, I go to Norman, work out, then I come to Edmond, train with the team, then I would do stuff with Hardell Moore afterwards or whoever else when I wrestle. So I wrestle 3 times a day, if not more. So my third workout, I'm about to work out, and I'm by myself because no one showed up to wrestle. And this guy with glasses comes in the gym and was like, "Hey, I have a fight in the USWF coming up pretty soon. I'm facing a wrestler. I'm gonna throw punches, kicks, and knees at you. So I wanted to see if I can land them on you. Here's $10. So I'm like, all right, throw those punches, kicks, and knees. And I see him, and I'm like, not fast enough to take me, not fast enough to stop me. So I'm gonna take him down left and right. So I took him down left and right nonstop. And we're both tired, but he was dead tired too. And he was ready to leave. And right before he left, I was like, oh, you're not leaving. We're doing sprints and push-ups and pull-ups. So we did that. And we did that for weeks. He went to his fight. He was killing this guy, killing him. And then took the guy's back, crossed his ankles, and got hit with the ankle lock with like 2 seconds left. So he's like, man, Mo, you helped me out a lot. Man, I got so much better. I'm gonna go train with the Milicic camp. And I'm like, Milicic, whatever. So he went to train with Pat Milicic later, got some good training in with him, came back to Edmond and was like, Mo, I got a phone call from King of the Cage. And I already knew what time it was because the King of the Cage champions fought in Pride. So I'm like, man, you got King of the Cage? He's like, yeah. And actually before that, he's like, no, I got a call. I was like, where? He's like, I'm fighting the 4-man tournament in Houston. And I'm like, okay, bet, let's go. He's like, all right, so we go to Houston. I see the draw. It's Pete Spratt, former UFC fighter, Yves Edwards, former UFC fighter, some Mexican guy, I don't know who he was, and us. They did the draw. We get lucky and get the Mexican guy. Yves Edwards and Pete Spratt fighting the bottom. The next day, after we all made weight, the next day we show up to the venue. Our opponent doesn't show up, so we're in the finals already. So Pete Spratt fights Yves Edwards. Yves wins. We face Yves in the finals. Yves knocks us out in the finals. So we're 0-2. So he goes back to train with Pat Milicic some more. Gets a few fights in between. He wasn't training with me, trained with somebody else. Wins the fights. And he's like, Mo, hey, I got a fight in California. Mind you, I'm a sophomore or junior in college this time.
Wow.
And I'm like, for really? He's like, the King of the Cage. I'm like, that's what's up. He's like, I want you to come with me. And I'm like, you want me to come to California for a fight? He's like, yeah. I'm like, who you fight? He's like, I'm fighting some guy named Romy Aram. I'm like, okay. He's like, Romy Aram just beat Jerry Bolander at that time from Lions Den. And that was a big deal. And the funny story is I see Romy Aram all the time because he corners the guys that I coach against. So so I'm like, what's Romy's background? He's like, he's a striker, grappler, but I could beat him with wrestling. So we train wrestling. We train hard. You head out there. You make weight. I see like Dan Henderson, Rampage Jackson, all these famous people out there. But then come fight time, we just didn't show up because Romy Aram was just that much better than us at that time, you know. But the thing is, Jeff didn't get all the wins he got, but as a coach right now, he's a great coach. He's experienced, and a lot of fighters in the Oklahoma area would be stupid not to reach out to this guy. Even the guys that are grapple, if you're a grappler, you know what I'm saying, or catch wrestler, and you're in Oklahoma and you're not talking to Jeff Lindsay, something's wrong with you.
Well, we gotta, hopefully he'll bring some guys out to the Coliseum MMA out with Braden Brown. I don't know if you know Braden. Braden, it's his gym that we're going to, and Braden is the cat that was famous, went viral. His video went on like Rogan, Sonnen, like Pat McAfee, all these guys, because he was the guy that got in that fight with those football players, picked a fight with him in the bathroom, him and his brother, and they just
MMA guy, yeah.
Braden Brown.
Yeah, I seen it. Yeah. Put the legs in. Yeah.
It's going to be super amazing. So I sure hope that all those guys would be really great to meet those guys, especially. I feel like this is like kind of historic having you come back up to Norman. I'm really excited to be there. So now I'm curious, kind of again, like fight philosophy and strategy and technique. Like, where do you clearly you are a wrestling based fighter. You're not one dimensional. You got all these other aspects of the game because you're a student and a champ and all this stuff. But what is your view or your perspective about what is it? Why is wrestling so freaking dominant? Right? Like, we know that it's the biggest predictor of champions in MMA. We know that twice as many guys come from wrestling that are champs than jiu-jitsu, which is second place, but it's like wrestling laps it. Like, what is it? Is it the determination? Is it the mindset? Is it the conditioning? Is it the technique? Is it all of it? What is it in your mind?
Well, the thing is, like, I'd say the thing is great. Well, it's not. I might say just the technique, but I think it's the mindset in a sense because wrestling is a martial art, but it's not a true martial art, self-defense martial art. It's a offensive martial art, kind of like sambo. You know what I'm saying? So, um, with collegiate wrestling is more like jujitsu, except you're more offensive. Freestyle is just takedowns.
Right, right. Yeah, the folk style, you got the groundwork.
Yeah, let the groundwork. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like it's easier to apply freestyle and freestyle and collegiate moves to jiu-jitsu, makes it catch wrestling in a sense.
Yeah.
Where
Yep.
you go for more. You're offensive. Where in jiu-jitsu, you can just lay on your back and just play defense, and it's a slow. That's why gi jiu-jitsu is terrible to watch.
Yep.
No one, people like no gi, but gi is terrible. No gi's cool because you see no gi now. Those guys use wrestling more because you see them more offensive. If you watch Abu Dhabi back then, years ago,
It's
nobody
awesome.
was shooting takedowns. They're pulling guard.
Yeah,
But now people are shooting takedowns, duck under snap. You see those two twins, the Cade and Ty.
Yeah.
The Rutolo twins.
Yeah.
Shooting takedowns, blast doubles, snaps.
Well, like, even them, I saw some interview. I can't remember what show it was on, and which one. I think it was. I can't remember which Rotolo kid it was, but he was like, they asked him, "What's the number one thing you focus on?" And he's like, "Wrestling, dude. I do. I mean, I'm in the mix on all these different rule sets, but wrestling is what I really focus on to win."
But see, and also it's different types of wrestling because like guys like Ben Askren, and who's that guy from Lehigh he beat years ago? I forgot. It's another funk guy he beat years ago. Crippled him. But some guys like that can wrestle, but it's more like a jiu-jitsu funk base.
Yeah, funky.
Yeah, funk.
Yep, like
those guys translate over jiu-jitsu. Granted, they're wrestlers, but their wrestling is almost jiu-jitsu based in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like slippery and they're more scrambly, collegiate style. Then you got the guys that you get the guys that have jiu-jitsu, but they're more solid base, like Buchecha, solid takedown, solid double legs. They can scramble some, but they're very solid with their technique. You know, their takedown technique.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about the fact when you actually start getting into the wrestling, like the wrestling ecosystem, and I'm not even just talking like freestyle Greco folk style. I'm just even talking folk style. You know, there's these different like subculture within, like you mentioned, like the funky stuff, because you know we work a lot with Wade Chalice, who's like the godfather of funk, right? Or
Randy Lewis, Randy Lewis, Wade Chalice, Ben Askren.
You know, I think a lot of like what determines a style is something you actually brought up just intuitively right away when I was asking you about like, man, this kid's got a choice between basketball and wrestling. You're like, well, what's his body type? I think the body type too is going to affect what kind of style. Because I remember when I started, I'm a tall, lanky dude. I'm like 6'2". And my wrestling coaches were telling me to change levels, and I could never get under the guys in my weight class. Because I wish I would have had a funk coach earlier, because then I would have been using my reach and my leverage instead of trying to like do these moves that I just were not going to.
Or a Greco coach, because like, look, I feel like if you're tall, you have an underhook, who's going to beat you?
Yeah.
If you're tall with the underhook, your throw by's there, your foot suit's there, your inside trips there, your snap down's there, all that stuff is there. You know, if you're short, you have your radar step, single legs, snap single legs, your duck unders, your blast doubles. Every body type is different. You know, you rarely see guys that are short and squatty be great at scrambling. They're great getting to their feet, but as far as scrambling, like you really don't see it that much.
Yeah, that's right. And what's interesting about what you said about Greco is that in my study, when I'm, you know, because I went deep diving on the old school catch can thing, started working with these old cats like Billy Robinson and Carl Gotch. And what I found that was very interesting was when I was doing this was really when that first wave of celebrity wrestlers entered MMA. And we're talking Couture, Dan Henderson, all these Greco guys, which kind of, to me, like you mentioned how boxing and wrestling are so complementary because the stances and the footwork and stuff are similar. Well, you know, you look at a Greco stance, it is like a boxing stance.
Yeah, it's boxing stance.
So I do think, like, you know, what we do with scientific wrestling is what you know, I call hybrid wrestling, you know, kind of almost an homage to the old Pancrase dudes. But, you know, it's hybrid. Like, I really like this idea. And, you know, it's probably, you're right, my bias of being a tall, lanky wrestler. of having a Greco stand up, tying up with the guy and not changing levels. So you end up like an incredible wrestler like Askren on the bad end of a highlight reel because you changed levels on a guy who needs you in the head.
And then the thing about this, look at Terrence Crawford, former wrestler. Lomachenko, former wrestler. Beibut Shemanov, former wrestler. Anthony Andre Durrell, former. I can name a lot of boxers that used to spend time in, Ronnie Austin, guys that Lydell Rhodes wrestled from Oklahoma. There are a lot of people that did both. Triple G, Lomachenko did sambo and did some wrestling. So there's strong crossover between wrestling and boxing. I've been to every boxing gym I can say I've been to. There are people there that wrestle. You go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is known for wrestling and boxing and pro wrestling.
Yeah,
and
right.
Combat sports in general. Philly is a combat sports city. Vegas is a combat sports city. South Florida is getting that way too. You're starting to see it spread everywhere. And wrestling, in order to be a combat sports city in a sense, it has to have a strong sense of wrestling. That's why you're seeing these big tournaments in Las Vegas. You're starting to see more and more spread out in these areas where combat sports is big. You just can't have boxing, jiu-jitsu, and kickboxing and no wrestling.
Yeah.
What we in Brazil? Even in Brazil, they got wrestling. As a matter of fact, like if I'm cornering somebody, if I see a guy with cauliflower ear doing a wrestling stance, I'll pull him aside. This happened last month, and we'll go over technique. We'll hand fight. He'll show me a few techniques. I'll show him a few techniques. We exchange, because like wrestlers, ain't no secrets in wrestling. Ain't no secrets in combat sports. There are no secrets in just like competition. Strong competition. Everything's out there, because if you compete, your film's out there. Everything's out there.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, because so I've Wade Chalice has been a friend of mine and a mentor for like 20 years now, and it's interesting because this dude is wrestling prior to the internet, prior to like films really getting out, and he was letting us know, like, he's like, dude, what I would do is I would see like which side is his cauliflower on, because that tells me which hip is he hitting when he shoots in, right? He'd be looking at the tread on the shoe to see which foot he drives off of, right? Like, but you're right. We live in the information age now. There ain't no secrets, dude. There's definitely either a BJJ Fanatics video, some dude on YouTube, whatever, man. It's everywhere. So it does come down, like I think what you're implying, to the individual.
Yeah, only secrets there is, only secrets there are is the tactics used for the fight or the competition that day or that night. That's it, because no one's gonna be. There are very few people that be like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go out there, shake hands, hand fight, high crotch. You defend, swing single, duck under, then step that. I'm gonna chop your arm, not throw a hook in, like no one relays their knowledge of what they're gonna do for a fight. You might get an idea and you might speculate, but no one knows what's gonna happen until the fight or the competition actually happens.
That's right, man. Guys, listen, you guys want to not only train with King Mo, but chat with this dude. Like, this guy's obviously a wealth of knowledge. You guys got to get over to CertifiedCatchWrestler.com. Okay, I'm going to throw it up right here. You guys see it down there? Down there at the bottom, it says CertifiedCatchWrestler.com. Dude, I am bringing King Mo to you in 3 different places, man. We going to Louisiana, we going to Denver, and then going back to Oklahoma as well. So you guys do not want to miss out on this, man. Like, King Mo, are you okay on time? Can I pick your brain?
Yeah. I got a few more minutes. Yeah, I got some time. Yeah.
Okay. So where do you see, this evolution, right? Like I see, what I've seen is this like hybrid wrestling thing happening because of MMA. And it, to me, it looks just like catch wrestling, like you kind of implied. Like, cats are learning these submissions. Cats are learning how to stay top dominant. I mean, now you see all these instructionals out by all the Danaher guys and the B team guys, and it's all about pinning and grappling. And I'm like, dude, I've been saying that for 20 years, and all of a sudden they're starting to understand like top pressure, rides, things like that. What do you see the evolution? Where is the sport? What's it look like? In, let's say, 5-10 years, because I remember looking back, Frank Shamrock was a coach of mine for a while. And that guy was, to me, the prototype for what came for the next 10, 15 years. What do you see the evolution from today going forward in the next 5, 10 years for the sport? What's it going to look like?
Honestly, I'm not sure because you never know until someone unexpected hops in. Because let's say a guy that's 6'7" is like, you know what, my knees hurt for playing basketball. I'm gonna wrestle. I'm gonna go wrestle a heavyweight or was it 220? I think it's 220, and goes out there, has a slick cradle. Or let's say the guy's like very athletic. Then it gives people hope that, like, you know what, I can do this too. You never know because, like, trends. Like, for instance, like when I was coming up, the low single, the super duck were the moves, but no one was hitting them because everyone counted the moves. Those moves were very effective 4 years before I started wrestling. I mean, but not before. But I mean, 4 years before I got to college. Super duck, low single. Oh, everybody said now. It's not happening because people. The Wizard, just like when I was coming up, the Wizard actually died. Like the Wizard, half Nelson still works, but you don't hear anyone say run the half in college. No. Things change. With the social media out there and the access to information out there. Like I remember watching 7-on-7 football. Right? Remember when that football player, I forgot who it was, caught that ball one-handed, did a flip and land. Okay.
Yeah.
Then literally months later, I'm seeing kids at tournaments doing that same thing, jumping up, catching the ball one hand, doing a flip and landing on their feet. So I mean, like, seeing is believing. So if you have like all this access to information, kids on their phone, they're not using DVDs and VHSs like I did. They're just going to YouTube and saying, "Hey, let me fast forward this 30-second mark. Boom. Do you see this move? Let me share this. Boom." And we didn't have that. So
it's crazy, right? That velocity of information, because Billy Robinson was near and dear to my heart. He, I was kind of an apprentice under him for like 7 years. So not only a pro wrestler, but like a legit catch guy. And he used to say this. What you're talking about exactly. He's like, there ain't nothing new.
Oh.
Because wrestling been going around since the dawn of man. As long as we had arms and legs and a head and a body, there's been wrestling going on. But what happens is, he says, it's like you said, like trends. It's like a champion will do a cool move and then everybody copies and everybody forgets the stuff from up here. And then all of a sudden, everybody's going this way and somebody is a contrarian and zigs while everybody else is zagging, and then they nail everybody. Like the wrestler's guillotine, or they start doing Nelsons or cradles or whatever. And then all of a sudden everybody does spladles and Nelsons and cradles, and they forget about, so I totally get you.
It's like this eats that eats this, and comes around and eats the same thing. It's like you're eating yourself, because the thing is, like, let's say like you have a great front headlock and you're pinning people with the front headlock. Well, then I work on a drag, and then you work on this, and it just builds up, and then you go a different move. So like I feel like the more you have more variety, you have more opportunity, you have I don't know, you just expand your mind more when I feel like when you're wrestling and you're in the zone, you know what I'm saying, and you're challenging yourself and you're chain wrestling. Like a master of wrestling, a guy that masters wrestling can understand chain wrestling. That's the code language, or that's the universal language for wrestlers. Chain wrestling. Can you chain wrestle? Going from move to move to move.
That brings me to another point, because you're educated, dude. You're got a PhD in combat sports, right? Like, not really, because that don't exist, but like basically. So what's interesting to me is that also, and this is what I really love this about you, that you also do pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And you've been doing pro wrestling. Like, who are some of the organizations you've been doing matches for?
I've done matches for Impact. I'm doing Blueprint. A few local, just like local regional, that does some in Texas, California. You know what I'm saying? I'm just doing like indie stuff right now. I'm gonna get back in the local scene here in Florida with Blueprint Wrestling. There's some local Florida organizations that are popping up right now since COVID.
What's interesting to me is that the success that guys like Kurt Angle, Dan Severn, all these guys, Dolph Ziggler, like these guys who have a good, solid amateur background, they could come in and they could start doing matches and basically calling it in the ring, as the old timers used to say. But that's because they understand that chain wrestling that you're talking about. It's like, dude, we're just gonna go do some play wrestling. I ain't gonna take it home.
Yeah. So it takes some time because shooters, when they first start, they're stiff.
Yeah.
And because it's not competition. You get to work with your opponent, not work him, but work with him or her.
Yeah.
So when I first started learning how to work in the ring, I had to break that habit because I'm gonna compete. Oh no, we're not competing.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it funny because like some people, there's still a stigma, and still even in amateur wrestling or scholastic or folk style wrestling, sometimes there's still that old stigma that seemed to be more back in the late 80s or 70s, where amateur wrestlers will look down their nose at pro wrestlers. But I think they've finally smartened up that, hey, dude, this is no different than George St. Pierre being in the Captain America movie.
Yeah, it's no. I feel like it's a lot different. Like, because it's harder than what you think. A lot of wrestlers, it's not like wrestling. Oh, we do matches, we do this, we cut weight. Yeah, it's pretty damn hard. Like taking bumps day after day, week after week.
Brutal.
Like, it's not just like we wrestle tournaments. I've wrestled tournaments I'm less sore, but I won them. And when you win tournaments, you're not that beat up compared to guys that lose them. You're beat up, but now when you're wrestling a match, you could win, but you're beat up because you took bumps all throughout. Man, those are some of the sorest times I've ever had to deal with. Had the most pain just from taking these bumps, back, neck, heels, ankles, hips, knees, elbows, wrists. Everything was sore. Shoulders. I had to condition myself.
And then you look at some of these old cats like Ric Flair, who were on these insane schedules where they're wrestling like 300 days a year, and then they've got a career that's like 50 years long.
Yeah.
Like those are some truly tough, hard dudes. They may not know the technical parts on a shoot, some of them, but damn, those guys are like inoculated against damage.
Yeah. Ric Flair actually I think he was in a plane crash.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
So
broke his back and still came back, and he came back better after the after the crash. So Mo, hey man, we're creeping in on 40 minutes. This went super fast, dude. Super fast. I really appreciate you showing up. Dude, I'm telling these guys, I'm like, if I could reach through the screen and grab them by the collar, you guys have to show up to these camps, dude. I put these camps on for you, not for me. I could just hang out with Mo and bullshit, and he could teach me all the genius shit that he's figured out. But I'm trying to get you guys in and get the rub with these dudes. You got to get in the room with the guys that are good. Look at what King Mo said earlier about, like, he showed up and this other dude didn't have a partner, and so he starts rolling with King, and it just changes his whole freaking life.
Yep.
That wouldn't have happened if King Mo wasn't obsessed, if he wasn't serious, if he didn't just show up, take the risk, figure it out, put it on a credit card. Like, just figure it out, man. Go get a paper route if you can't figure it out. Like, let's go. Like, he's talking about he's dropping $40 to people for dry. You got to make this happen for yourself.
Yeah, $40 back then was like 150 right now.
Right, with inflation. So wrapping up, King Mo, I'm not going to beat these guys over the head too much, but they're stupid. I don't mean to be rude, but you're stupid if you don't show up.
Man, it's all good. It's like this, right? They're not familiar with me. Like, we'll do another interview next Wednesday. We'll do them every Wednesday up until I'll give you 30, 40 minutes.
They need to,
every Wednesday.
First of all, dude, like, I'm like a huge fan of your work, dude. And the thing is like this. It's like you look at somebody like Wade Chalice, Guinness record holder for the most wins and pins over international champions, but nobody knows who he is because he never went to the Olympics. You know what I mean? But it doesn't change the fact that this guy is not like a wizard, like a freaking guru. This is how I feel about you. You've crushed it in Bellator. You've crushed it in Risen. You've crushed it everywhere you've gone, man. And just because maybe you're not up on UFC or WWE, these people are dumb if they're sleeping on it. I'm known for this, bringing people that are the best that nobody ever heard of. Before I got Billy Robinson out on the scene, people are like, what is this, huh? And I'm like, dude, you want to wrestle like Sakuraba? This is the guy. Let's go. You know what I mean? So this is what I'm trying to do, is I'm really trying to introduce what this term I came up with. I don't know, it's probably not new, but like grappling literacy. Like people need to get up on this, because grappling is like a language. You know what I mean? Like, you got these indigenous tribes and stuff, and if the language isn't spoken, it dies. I mean, we had wrestling almost yanked out of the Olympics.
Yeah.
And it is dominant combat sport, martial art on the planet, man. Like probably the most impactful sport that's ever existed, especially catch. Because out of catch comes not only pro wrestling, which like WWE and AEW, all these huge, it was massive impact in terms of the quantifiable impact in terms of fans, athletes, coaches, promoters, business people involved, change their lives. But that's just pro wrestling. Then you look at scholastic wrestling. Then you look at Olympic wrestling. Then you look at MMA and grappling. Like all that came out of this, dude, and nobody knows. So I'm sitting here to feel like sometimes I'm screaming into the abyss. You guys got to get in. Like King Mo, you guys are going to get. I was chatting with somebody the other day. Okay, this ain't a knock on Danaher. Like the guy's great, whatever. I wish him all the success in the world. Somebody told me he's charged $395 for 1 hour private instruction. Awesome. If you can get that, awesome. Okay. But dude, seriously, you could go to camp. This is not 1 hour. This is 12 hours of training, 2 days of training. King Mo is going to be there. I think we got you on Saturday on each of these events. Full day. It's like 3 seminars with King Mo. And then a whole second other day going over catch as catch can wrestling, like the old school tech. Okay, that's been forgotten. It's on the other side of that clock. All the people are doing the trendy stuff. You want to be unorthodox, you got to be up here. Dude, all of that for $377. It's actually $8 cheaper for 2 days with us, with champs like King Mo, than 1 hour with this other cat who's probably going to pontificate for 95% of the time. Okay? A no-brainer. I wish people all the best in the world, but I'm trying to help you improve with guys like King Mo. So, King Mo, wrapping it up. I really do see this, like, especially now in the business, this Endeavor company and how they gobbled up both UFC and WWE, like, I see a move towards what we've been doing for 20 years, and this is this shoot thing. I'm like, how long is it going to take for this Endeavor company to start putting peanut butter with jelly and doing what we've been doing for 20 years, and that is competitive grappling under professional wrestling rules? Do you see that as well, or am I just tripping? I just see the whole industry moving that way.
Well, it could. I think it just depends on who from the heavyweight division, because really it's going to be heavyweights doing it. You're not going to see too many guys. Like, it's going to be the bigger guys doing it. So it'd have to come down to like Gable Stevenson. He'd be the start, because I couldn't see a 197 pound. I could see a 197 pounder doing it. 81, 84, unless they do some cruiserweights. And the cruiserweights in pro wrestling tend to be gymnasts, high flyers, luchas. So it could be done, but it'd have to probably be done like remember the King of the Ring? How they had the King of the Ring with the boxing? They probably do it here and there with the competition, where they have like 2 guys that could, compete or grapple and work that way. Yeah,
but the thing is it ain't even a work though. I mean, I know you're just throwing around.
No, I mean not work, but I mean like compete that way.
Yeah. No, because the thing is like, this is that, dude. You're so in tune with what my idea is and my vision, and it's that, like, if you look at, okay, so yeah, it's called World Wrestling Entertainment, yeah, and even like McGregor calls his company McGregor Entertainment. Yeah, these sports like the NBA, the NFL, they're all entertainment, man. Like there's no doubt about that. Okay, but the thing is, I think that, let's look at like WWE's product. That's a variety show, dude. There's tag team matches, men's matches, intergender matches, women's matches, hardcore matches, like all these different kinds of things. Like, whereas UFC, same match every time, same rules. Maybe championships got more rounds, but it's the same thing every time. pro wrestling's figured out, man, let's mix it up. Let's get a variety show going. And dude, why can't there just be a shoot division, a shoot belt within the variety show? Why can't we have a seat at the table as shooters, and people can move back and forth? You know, cats like Ziggler, cats like Kurt Angle or whatever. And when they get tired of grappling for real, they go and they do some work stuff, some entertainment stuff to sell tickets.
They actually have more in Japan. The thing about seeing Japan, the people that run the wrestling in Japan also competed. You know, even New Japan, the guys in New Japan actually competed. Look at Minoru Suzuki. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, look at Shibata. I was there when Shibata fought Mayhem in Japan, Mayhem Miller. So it's different in America because in America, the people running the organizations, the pro wrestling organizations, never competed. They're just actors and actresses, and they've never set foot on the mat, never set foot in the ring, in a cage, maybe in the weight room, maybe the
bodybuilding.
in a tanning booth. But as far as like competing now, that's like, can you imagine Vince McMahon saying, you know what, I want to do this, I want to do some wrestling, but Vince McMahon's too old. You know, it's gonna take a younger mind that actually competed before that will actually open up the masses to this. It's gonna take a younger mind.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, you know, Vince, he's still got control of, I think he's 51% control of Endeavor. And so he's still behind the helm. So maybe when he passes, who knows? Yeah, man, listen. Oh, go ahead.
No. He's old, you know, and it's another thing. You have to, from then you have to introduce the masses to a new set of rules. So that's the other thing. You have to learn how to teach a bunch of country beer drinking people that watch pro wrestling and never seen. Think about this. I know you've seen South Park, the episode where that's not real wrestling. Yeah. Had Kevin Jackson, my old wrestling coach, in the background of the picture. But some people are like, what is this? Is this gay porn?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, like it's gonna come down to you introducing the grappling arts again to the masses. They knew it before, but now it's been forgotten because of reality TV, NBA, this, that. Everything's kind of pushed it to the back.
I think you make a really good point about Japan, though. Like, and you know, there is a glimmer of hope because you look at Pride, dude. I look at how UFC is promoted. It's promoted like boxing, whereas Pride, same thing, competitive MMA was promoted like pro wrestling because of Japan, right? And so you also make a great point about these guys that are shooters in Japan because of the culture. And New Japan, dude, I think they're still the number 3 in terms of viewership worldwide. So you know, maybe as people get educated because of the internet and people are just stuck watching what's on cable TV, they can get other stuff like Japanese pro wrestling. Maybe there is a big enough base to begin to build this. Because, you know, I find the ultimate irony is that WWE is pulling guys like Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, all these people from MMA to give the rub and the legitimacy to put over guys like Roman Reigns, right? It seems like a no-brainer, man. I just see this merger that happened between them. It's only a matter of time till somebody there is like, oh, I got an idea. Let's do competitive grappling under pro wrestling rules, you know? Yeah. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Guys, let's give it up for King Mo. Thank you so much, brother. I'm so excited to work with you. Guys, CertifiedCatchWrestler.com. You can also go Coaching Catch. They both point to the same place. Get signed up. King Mo is going to be in Denver. King Mo is going to be in Lake Charles, Louisiana, the home of Grant Cardone, by the way. And then he's also going to be back in Norman, Oklahoma. Okay. And then we also have on the tour, we got Josh Barnett, we got Wade Chalice, we got Brandon Ruiz. You know, now some of these guys, you probably heard of Josh Barnett, but you may not have heard of Brandon Ruiz. This guy's a FILA World Grappling Games champion, All-American Greco, 3rd-degree black belt in Machado Jiu-Jitsu. Like, dude, we are bringing you these guys to sharpen your tools, dude. You're going to go back to your gym. The number one feedback I get over 15 years of doing this is that people come to our camp for one weekend and they go back and then they tell me, dude, I smoked a dude that I never beat before. That's what we're bringing to you, man. We want to bring you the best. We want to push you. We want you to grow. So King Mo, dude, this has been a real pleasure, man. I really enjoyed all the wisdom, dude. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, guys. That was King Mo. You guys got to show up, man. This guy's the best. So listen, I appreciate all you guys. Hit it up, okay? Hit it up as soon as you can. Coachandcatch.com. I'm going to throw that up one more time. Can you see this down below? Get certified. Learn with the best at certifiedcatchwrestler.com. Okay? Hit me up in the DMs. You got questions. You need more information. Dude, I've been doing this for 15 years now with high-level dudes like this. You got to get there. It will change your life. Guaranteed. All right, guys. I appreciate